Alright, so whose pick was this one? Joker's Game. That was...
It was my pick.
Alright, Christina. Give us a quick summary.
Quick summary.
I'm sorry, did the mic pick that up? It's best that you don't know if you didn't notice.
Yeah, I accidentally farted.
Accidentally.
Oh my god. It's okay. Hilarious. Anyways, I'm gonna drink my rosé. Anyways, the synopsis of Joker's Game is about the development of a spy agency in Japan pre-World War II. And it really focuses on just the country, all the tensions between all the countries just beginning of the war. That's why this spy agency was formed, because they were trying to get information from each other. So that was really interesting to see the Japanese perspective of things, because we're so used to seeing the Western perspective of what happened before World War II. So it just carries on focusing on each spy in the agency. There's 8 of them in total, and they've all been recruited from top universities, which has been different because usually, I guess, in Japan previously, before that, all the spies were army or military personnel. But this time they're from, they're civilians. They're college students. So they're trained in espionage and counter surveillance, and also, to fight. And I think the head of the agency was
Colonel Yuuki.
Yeah, Colonel Yuuki. I was like, what's his name? It's Yuki.
Yes, the only name I remember.
Yep.
Yeah,
Same here. Same here.
But the only name you need to remember.
Yes.
No.
And that's why it was so good.
The only interesting fact I knew is it's a 2016 anime. It's produced by Production IG. So that's actually one of the major heavy hitter productions. They do Ghost in the Shell. They do Attack on Titan. Originally, they did a live action movie in 2015, so they didn't use the same spies. They just had, I think Yuki was probably in it. Out of the Blu-ray and the DVD that came out, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the episodes are actually out of order. So they don't go from 1 to 12. They had it, they even have a timeline for them. So episode 12 isn't actually the last episode. I think they actually think the last episode was supposed to be 11. So then all the timelines are all it's different. So then if you have the DVD, then they can let you stream it in the timeline they wanted you to watch it in. And another really interesting thing is actually America really didn't like this anime because it kind of glorified World War II and Japan's armed military. So
I mean, I told my sister about it, and she's like, "You mean you're hearing Japan's perspective on this?" And she's like, "They're on the wrong side of history, right?" And I was like, well, I mean, it's just a story.
That's so American.
That is so American. I think Hitler's on the wrong side of history. I think Japan was just trying to assert their power. I really like the anime.
I did too.
I did think going into it, it was going to glorify it or something. But in a way, when you really look at it, it doesn't. The spies are all against the military and how they do things. And it's really just about focusing on the spies and their path. And they never have political associations. They're always just kind of doing their job. That even the Germans, who ended up being the Japanese allies, are almost seen as the worst of the people who they have to do missions against. And there's that one episode early on where the spy was infiltrating the French resistance, and he was infiltrating it to get information on them, and then he still didn't know that they were going to ally against the Germans. Right? He only found out about that after the fact. And so I thought it was interesting how it's focusing on just one group of within Japan, but not really saying they're in the right or anything. And so I didn't really think it really went with Japan.
Yeah.
I felt like it could have been any country. I thought it was just 12 really interesting spy episodes. It could have been. I was just thinking to myself, if it was a live action series, I would totally watch this. And then you tell me there was a movie, and
I gotta watch the movie.
Gonna look that up.
Yeah.
Did you like the aspect that how America kind of makes spy movies all action packed and crazy? So basically, like how the James Bond series, there's always like a bunch of gadgets and a bunch of stuff or car scenes and action scenes.
I like that there weren't all these like little gadgets that were like very convenient, you know? Like all of a sudden they just have whatever they need to do what they need to do. Like they had to be resourceful. Like that one guy used like kids on a train and like a cart. Another guy, that one guy who was working with the French resistance, like he had to kind of like figure out, what was it, something about the gun to figure out like who's
broken the gun.
So it was all really, they just had to be resourceful and like make do with whatever they had.
I liked how it required a little more thought than like regular American spy movies or shows. There was a lot more thought, and it also focused more on the emotional side of things, like how isolating it can be to be a spy. You never really can be yourself with someone. You can't really trust someone. So I really liked how they explored that. And another thing I really enjoyed was how Colonel Yuuki, his model was like, we don't kill people. We get that information we need, and that's it. But we don't kill. Killing should be your last resort. So I really like that side of things too. You know, it was interesting for them to portray that perspective, just because you hear how, I don't want to say murderous, but you know, the Japanese weren't. You didn't mess with the Japanese. They really wreaked havoc before the United States reeled them in.
Brutality.
There was a lot of brutality. So it was really interesting how they took that perspective for Colonel Yuuki to be like, we don't kill. I guess that it might have just offset with the whole military's conduct with things, right? How they were like killing first, and they really emphasized that. So that was cool, just to see how the tension played out between different spy agencies, between different countries, because they really did make it seem like America started it first. Like there was this big convening of all the big countries coming together, and then America and Britain were just like playing with, you know, they're playing together on one side, and Japanese were kind of like left out, and they're like, okay, we don't know what's going on, although we feel like we have Western influence and we've been working well with you, we've opened our doors to you, but you're kind of shutting us out. And so I think that's why, you know, why they showed that was really interesting, because it's like, okay, well, maybe there was a reason why they were doing it. They were trying to assert themselves, assert their power as well. It just, all the historic information that they put into those 12 episodes was just like, it made me spend a lot of time on Wikipedia, because I was looking for things on it, and I loved it because I learned something new. And I'm not saying like Japan was in the right, but if you know, like it does show you there's different perspective when it comes to war.
It was kind of the anime that I was looking for, because we'd watched a lot of weird and magical Japanese stuff, whereas this was, if it was, like I say, if it was a TV show, I would have watched this without Gabe giving me an assignment. Like, it was a decent TV show, and I like the way that it didn't tie in every episode. You could daydream through one episode and still watch the next one and not be like, wait, who's that guy? It was really good how they were standalone. There was a concurrent thread going through it all, which was like figuring out the backstory of the general. But still, every episode stood on its own merits and its own right, and they were all different. They all took a different approach to kind of telling a story.
So you guys all like that more? The other?
No, but not necessarily.
I don't think it makes it better. I think it just makes it a little easier to jump into.
It makes it different. I love Nice, right? It was a proper episodic show, and you followed it, and you got into the characters, and you did that. But then at other times, you want to just have a little 25-minute masterpiece. Although, like 10 minutes once you've allowed for the epically long theme tune and exit tune on this one.
Yeah, it was 8 minutes in for the intro every time, and it was like such a long theme tune.
But still, you know, a little story stood in its own right. Each story had a different twist. I wonder if it had different writers, because they kind of worked in different ways.
Yeah.
But they were very much different, you know, different person view, different, you know, it was very good.
And then at the end, it's just like nicely wrapped up and explained for you, and then you can move on to the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you guys ever think the spies were just like too overpowered? Every episode kind of ended where the spies would always win.
I think it ended like that at all. I completely disagree with that. I think that the spies always won, but they didn't always win.
Or like near the end when the spy died on the train.
Yeah.
And trying to see if like, oh, did he live or not?
Yeah.
And then you find out he didn't.
He didn't. Yeah, I was surprised by that. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the first death.
Yeah.
Right? Because before that there wasn't any other spy who was close to that. So
I thought with the first 2 episodes, it was going to show the military liaison more.
that's what I
I thought it was going to show him because he was kind of, he was coming from the outside and trying to explain or rationalize to himself what's going on.
Yeah, he was a good like mechanism to view like what was going on in the spy school through because he was kind of the outsider.
I thought
it was a clever tactic.
It was a little ridiculous when he was calling them like, oh, they're spies? They're monsters. like this hyperbole of like, they're like the worst people ever.
They were trying to show the military versus spy difference, right? The spies think the military guys are utter like heathens, absolute kind of barbarians that just go around killing people without thinking about it, whereas the military people think that the spies are just utter, assholes without any kind of moral code.
Yeah.
When you referred to them as monsters, though, like really early on, I was totally preparing myself to like watch this anime where all the spies are doing like totally heinous things. Just
yeah.
It didn't end up being like
no, it wasn't.
It's almost like anticlimactic.
Yeah, because wasn't the episode about that? About how there was the corrupted police officer who was pretty high up, and he just kept going to casinos, and he like murdered someone, and then he like enlisted this guy to investigate what was going on, and it led back to him. Then he ended up killing himself.
Oh wait, no, he didn't kill himself. The other
didn't
officer,
Yeah.
the other officer,
The other
shot
officer because he killed that guy's lover.
Yeah. That's
Because
he was the only one
they're
who-
sharing the
found
same.
out,
They're sharing the same prostitute.
Yeah.
It was like, and it was like a transsexual or like,
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
like
a
a boy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was interesting. I was like, wow, this show has everything. It's
It's
so progressive.
once I saw, I was like, oh, it's Christina shows. It's like one of those animes.
I love
But
that.
I was like,
Oh, Christina, love this. There's a transgendered prostitute.
Favorite episode?
I think mine was the French Resistance one. That one kind of caught me off guard because I didn't think she was the one who was a traitor. I thought it was the guy who was a traitor.
And he actually, the spy, never knew which side he was really on.
Yeah.
Because he was like infiltrating the French resistance, but then he defended the French resistance from the German spy, and then found out, no, wait, you're actually spying on the French.
So that was interesting. I really liked that one.
I think my favorite is the other train one, the train accident.
Oh, where the spy dies.
Yeah, because those are I still can't really decide whether or not I would have wanted that episode earlier on, because I don't know what the exact order is supposed to be.
Yeah.
What the exact order of the episodes are supposed to be, but I don't know if I would. What do you guys think? Would you prefer to have it a little earlier on in this season so that you kind of get that they're actually in some kind of danger? Because then up until that point, it was episode 11, I think.
yeah.
And up until that point, everyone had been
So
made it
they
out
were kind of
alive.
invincible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't.
Yeah, that's that.
I feel like it could have been like a really good like last episode, but then I don't know if I would have wanted it a little bit earlier so I know that there is real danger
Yeah.
in what they're doing. But I spent the whole episode wondering, like, I was like, okay, so he's not really dead. Like, there's a decoy.
Yeah, that's what I thought
Yeah.
too.
And that's what I thought when they noticed something with the clothing. I thought it was like, is that to tell that's like a different, they switched bodies or something?
Yeah.
Rather than, oh no, they just grabbed information from the real spy's body.
Yeah, that was the thing. That episode was because they wrote all these difficult things, all these complex twists, and at the end it's like, oh no, like, the guy just went in before you spotted him. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but which is probably how being a spy works.
Yeah. There's always a risk.
And I also liked it because it showed that Yuki did care about his
Yeah.
spies.
But did he care about his spies or did he care
I
about
thought it was at
protecting
least
that guy's
respectful that
sources?
because then he closed his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a sign of respect. He at least respected them
As human beings.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that episode.
Did you guys like the animation though? Because it is a very high budget. It's like
It wasn't that memorable.
I thought at times they didn't detail things that were kind of noticeable. I thought at times like they didn't fill in some like character details and things at times.
Yeah.
None of like the main characters when they're talking, but they never really had to express a lot of crazy motion or anything, such as like flip flappers did, or even swim. Yeah. I thought those were better animators.
Yeah, I didn't think the animation was that great. Like nothing to write home about. Because then I remember watching the first episode and they showed every spy, and I was like, great, they all look the same. Their hair is just like kind of different. I was like, I'm not gonna remember anyone.
There were a few bits that you could tell that it was fairly high budget. Yeah. Where they'd done like some computery stuff. There were some focus tricks and stuff like that you kind of don't really notice, but then sometimes you did, and you were like, oh wait. But there weren't any really stylistic elements like there were in some of the others.
So I thought actually the background was drawn really well. It's just the characters are drawn kind of more basic. But then I did think like when they did the casino, or when they were introducing the spies, like the whole background of what street they were on was drawn nicely, and like scenery was nice, but like I guess the characters were just harder to follow.
One of the things that got me in the animation was on that train one.
Yeah.
You could tell they were on the train, right? Because stuff was like rocking slightly like you were on a train, and you're like, well, actually, if you're animating that's got to be pretty difficult to do, right? Because you can't just have this static background. You've got to kind of move the background as well as the people. I was impressed with that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Did you guys like the music then?
I don't remember it. I don't remember it. Like, it was alright. I don't remember it being bad, but I don't remember it, which is all you need to say.
I think at times it
wasn't
did
born
well.
to make history.
Yeah, it did well with the scene.
Yeah, that's also like. Because then I actually thought the music was really good with the episodes.
So you say you thought it was good in the episodes?
Yeah, the intro. Yeah, the jazzy kind of thing. Yeah. I don't know.
That's all.
And
early on, I kind of went back and forth, and then by the end, I was just like, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
Wasn't catchy. I thought it didn't have any of the stereotypical anime stuff that you think of when you think of anime. Like none of the giggles,
the fan
or
service,
the fan service, or the character has an emotion. And it's just like swirls of air behind them while they react. There's nothing like that. It was very straightforward.
It was.
And I thought it did well to go with the mood of all the episodes, the intensity.
Like, what's the food of the show?
I know. I've been pondering that question.
The food of the show.
And I can't come to the
Sake.
answer. Yeah.
The only time I can really remember eating was the other spy agency when they were in.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what they're eating though. I remember
No.
I think they were just drinking.
I just remember sake. Yeah.
Okay, sake it is.
Sake. I guess that's the liquid dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if you guys can give it a score, what would you guys give it?
It's a tough one. I'm gonna open with an 8.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I thought it was good. I thought, usually I rate these based on it being on an anime scale. But whereas this, like I say, if it was a real TV show, I'd have watched it and enjoyed it.
I think I give it a 9. I really enjoyed it. I really, really liked all the episodes. You know, I liked how there wasn't this there was a connecting story arc, but you could just go in at any time. You don't have to watch all of it to understand what's going on. So I like that about it, and I like that it was about before World War II, and I'm a nerd for World War II stuff, so it checked all the boxes for me.
I think I'd give it a 7.2, I guess, because I wasn't sure about the
Oh my
ending.
gosh, gave 0.2.
I want you to show your working.
Yeah,
where
I
you got the
wasn't
0.2
sure.
from.
I know. I was thinking, alright, so I like the animation, but I guess the characters are hard to follow, but the background was good. The music I kind of liked. Maybe the first song was kind of catchy, but I guess I can understand what you're saying. I was debating the end, but I'm not sure. I think I'm still in the favor of it because I like the Joker's song, but
I would give it an 8.5, I think. It's not quite, because the only one I've given a 10 to so far is Erase. So it's not quite, but I enjoyed it.
I give it an 8.9. It's just below 9 for me. Intro and outro wasn't a fan. I was skipping them. And I would have liked a little bit more overall story arc. to make me want to watch a second season more rather than just enjoy it for each episode. I thought the writing was great. I thought giving a historical perspective without trying to be more than, or like glorify any side or demonize any side too much. I thought that was really well done.
Awesome.
Thanks.
What are we going to watch next?